Algebra 2A people, this is your study guide. This is not test 3. That's weird. I guess it is our third test, but I'm just going to call it Chapter 2, Part 1. Just to fix that. All right. So, first one, find the vertex, axis symmetry, the max or min, and then graph. Now, you need to be able to answer this question first. What form is this written in? This is written in vertex form. And that's nice because the vertex is going to be very quick to find. Your vertex in this case is -5, -2. The way I got that is the opposite of the inside number, comma, the outside number, every time for vertex form. Real quick, right? I don't care if you graph that right now or if you graph it in the end, but I know that's going to be my vertex. And then I also know, just based off the fact that this is positive, that this is going to open up somewhere, up. Okay. Now my axis of symmetry here would be x equals -5. X equals -5. I know my axis of symmetry goes straight down the middle into my vertex and therefore is going to have the exact same x value as my vertex, so -5. And then I know my parabola is going to be symmetrical on both sides. Now max or min, first you need to tell me, is it a max or a min? Well, since this opens up, I don't know exactly what this looks like except for that it's going to open up. So the vertex is going to be at the bottom. So that is a minimum. And then if we're talking up or down, minimum y value. Y value is up and down, therefore my smallest y value is going to be -2. Now there's a bunch of different ways you can graph this. You could say there is 1 in front, or 1/1, so that's the slope of the right-hand side. And then I could mirror image it on the other side. If you wanted, you could take x values and plug them in. So for instance, let's plug in -3 and see what you get, just for fun. So x plus 5 squared minus 2, I'm going to plug in -3 because that's my x value, and this will tell me -3 comma something, because don't forget, anytime you have an x value, you want a y value, you plug it in. Well, -3 plus 5 is 2. 2 squared is 4. 4 minus 2 is 2. So therefore, -3 comma 2 would be another point, and then I can mirror image that on the other side. 5 points is more than enough. We connect them, get parabola-ish, and then we're done. That's it. Okay. Move on to the next vertex form one. So, take a hot second, pause this video, and see if you can tell me the vertex right now, because this as well is in vertex form. Vertex form. Hopefully you said 1, 4, which is beautiful. And then you can tell me the axis of symmetry is 1. 1, 4 be right here. And I know my axis of symmetry goes right down the middle, straight through the vertex. Now, I also should be able to look at the front here and say, hey, that is a negative number, so this is going to open down. I don't know exactly what this is going to look like, but I know it opens down. So therefore, I'm going to have my vertex all the way at the top, which is a maximum. And remember, y value is my maximum. Okay, from here, let's just take this as a slope. -3/1, right-hand side. Mirror image on the left-hand side. Again, you could find more points by plugging in an x value. I'm just going to leave it there. We're going to say, gorgeous, that is one sexy-looking quadratic. Beautiful. Let's move on. If you printed this off, that means you're going to flip the page. If you didn't print it off, then you're not flipping. All right, number 3, not vertex form. No, this is in standard form. Important to note, standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. one of the questions on one of my quizzes just gave something like this, and it said, in this case, what number would represent b? And if I ask that on your test later this week, wink, wink, then you can just remember a, x squared plus b, x plus c. Just describes the coefficients. So in this case, a is 1, b is 6, and c is 7. All right, now if I want the vertex, it's a little bit more complicated. You also need to remember this, x equals opposite of b over 2a. It's very important. That will give us the x part of the vertex and also the axis of symmetry. All right, so let's do this nonsense. Opposite of b. So in this case, we said b was 6. Opposite of b would be negative 6. And then 2 over a we said was 1. So negative 6 over 2 times 1, which is 2. Negative 6 divided by 2 is 3. Therefore, negative 3. The x part of the vertex is negative 3. And I can write this down right now. That's also my axis of symmetry. I know that my axis of symmetry is going to go down looking like this over x equals negative 3. Focus problems. And then I know my vertex is going to be somewhere on that line. I don't have the y value, though. Remember, anytime you have an x value and you want a y value, just plug it in. So y equals x squared plus 6 times x plus 7. But in this case, we have negative 3 for my x value. Now notice there were 2 x's, so I plugged it in twice. Well, let's see. Negative 3 squared is 9, because don't forget negative times a negative is a positive. 6 times negative 3 is a negative 18 plus 7. 9 minus 18 plus 7, I believe, double check me, is negative 2. So that means negative 3 comma negative 2 is my vertex, which is right here. You should also be able to tell me that this opens up because of my number in front. So that means that this is opening up. I'm going to have a number on the bottom, which is a minimum. And the lowest y value is going to be at negative 2. Negative 2. Now to graph this, let's not get too crazy complicated. I'm just going to use this as slope. Up 1 over 1 on the right-hand side, and then mirror image. You could find some more points. Actually, I'm going to find one more point, technically 2, but one more point using a pretty easy trick. I'm going to plug in 0. Watch what happens when I plug in 0. I'll do this down here. Y equals 0 squared plus 6 times 0 plus 7. Well, anything times 0 goes away, so I'm just left with y equals 7. Hey, nice. So that's the point 0, 7, because I plugged in 0. That's up here. You can mirror image that, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, on the other side, and that gives me a pretty good parabola. Should look something like that. Okay, look at number 4. Again, we are in standard form. And we are going to do all the same nonsense that we just did. Finding the vertex is probably the most complicated part of standard form. Still nothing crazy, but so we're still going to use this opposite of b over 2a. So in this case, it looks like b is a negative 24. Negative. So the opposite of a negative 24 is a positive 24 over 2 times a, which in this case is a negative 2. So I've got 24 over 2 times negative 2 is a negative 4, making this a negative 6. So the x part of my vertex is negative 6, and that is my axis of symmetry. Did you look at that? Now to find the y part of my vertex, let's do this down here so I have space. I'm going to plug in negative 6. Now notice this is written in function notation, so just for fun, I'm going to use my function notation. -2 times, I'm going to plug in -6 every single time that I see an x. I'm going to put it in red. Now, you all have Chromebook calculators. Again, you could do this by hand, or if you wanted to, you could bust out your handy-dandy calculator and punch this all in at once. -2 parentheses, -6 parentheses squared, minus 24 times -6, minus 72, enter. Hey, weird. That actually came out to 0. 0. You could do this by hand too, just for fun. -6 squared is 36. -24 times a -6 would be a positive 144. -2 times 36 is a -72, plus 144 minus another 72, and that all comes out to 0. Just to show you, so 6, 0. Or -6, 0. So -6, 0 is right here. That's my axis of symmetry is going to go right down through the vertex. You don't have to draw your axis of symmetry every single time. I do because I like to, and I'm a free American and make my own choices. This is a -2/1. That's the slope of the right-hand side. Mirror image on the left-hand side, and just for kicks and gigs, let's just leave it there. You could try my 0 trick and plug in 0, but you're going to get 0, -72. Not really going to fit on the graph. Lastly, you should be able to look at this graph now and say that's a maximum, and my very max y value is y equals 0. That's standard form. Nothing crazy. Last page, if you print it out. No graphs on this one. But you do need to look at all 3 of these and realize that they are all written in intercept form. Intercept form. Intercept form has those 2 sets of parentheses, right? Okay, so x-intercepts. You look at this and you should be able to tell me my x-intercepts very quickly. My x-intercepts are -6 and +2. Sometimes you'll see these written as points. You'll see -6, 0 and 2, 0, and that's fine. I'm cool with that. I'd actually almost prefer the points, but the lazy way of just writing x equals -6 and 2 is totally fine with me. Okay, -6 and 2, and that just comes from the opposites of these 2 numbers right here. So instead of +6, I have a -6. Instead of -2, I have a +2. Right now, if I want to find the vertex on this, I'm going to start with the x value, just like we did on pretty much all the others. The x value is exactly halfway in between -6 and 2. I want you to think about this. If I just draw a rough sketch of what this looks like, I have x equals -6 and x equals +2. Those are my x-intercepts. But don't forget, you have that axis of symmetry that cuts right down the middle of my graph. So I don't know what this looks like. I do know that it opens up because there's a positive number in front, but it's something like this, whatever. But I know because of symmetry that this axis of symmetry cuts straight down the middle, and so I know it's exactly halfway in between these 2 points. So here's a quick way to find that out. You take -6 and +2, and you find the average. Average, meaning I add them up, and I cut it in half. That finds the average, or the exact middle. So -6 plus 2 is -4, and -4 divided by 2 is a -2, meaning that is the x portion of my vertex. Okay? If I want the y portion, and I could write that down right now, that's also the axis of symmetry. Don't forget, axis of symmetry is just the x part of your vertex. If I want the y part of my vertex, to get y, you're going to plug it in. We've done that like 17,000 times. So I'm going to take f of x and I'm going to plug in negative 2. So 2 times x plus 6, x minus 2. So every time I see an x, I'm going to plug in negative 2. And this is just into the original equation. That original equation, 2 times x plus 6 times x minus 2. You can punch this all in or you can do it by hand. Negative 2 plus 6 is 4. Negative 2 minus 2 is a negative 4. This stuff is going to happen every single time where both numbers are the same, but one's positive, one's negative. And then 2 times 4 times negative 4 is a negative 32. Boom. So f of negative 2, meaning when x is negative 2, y is negative 32, and that is the vertex. That would be way the heck down here on my graph. Obviously not drawn to scale there. That's it. All right, look at number 6. Again in intercept form, because I got this nonsense here, 2 sets of parentheses. My x-intercepts in this case are negative 9 and negative 5. I just took the opposites of these two numbers. Notice that negative 4 doesn't play at all when I'm talking about my x-intercepts. That negative 4 doesn't matter. I could change that number and my x-intercepts would still be the same. All right, vertex. Now, if I want the x part of my vertex slash my axis of symmetry, I'm going to take negative 9, negative 5. I'm going to add these two numbers together and cut it in half. That's my average. Average. Oh, gosh. Sorry. Trying to focus it there. Went a little wild. Okay, so it looks like negative 9 minus 5 is a negative 14 over 2. Negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. Negative 7. So the x part of my vertex and the axis of symmetry is negative 7. Now I just got to find the y portion of my vertex. So I'm going to take g of x and I'm going to plug in negative 7. So negative 4 times, again, I'm just plugging it in right here, x plus 9, x plus 5. But every time I see an x, I'm going to plug in that negative 7. So it looks like I've got negative 4 times, let's see, negative 7 plus 9 is 2. Negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2. That's the thing I was talking about earlier. Same number. One is positive, one is negative. If I take negative 4 times 2 times negative 2, I get a positive 16. So g of negative 7 equals 16. So my vertex is a y portion of 16. Boom. Done. Again, I didn't ask you to graph this, so no need. Unless you really have a burning desire to graph, then by all means go for it. Last one. This one's a little bit more fun. You're probably going to want your calculator for this one, but whatevs. Okay, x-intercepts. X-intercepts are 2 and negative 1. Opposites of these two numbers. Opposite of a negative 2 is positive 2. Opposite of a positive 1 is a negative 1, right? Now, if I want to find the axis of symmetry and my vertex, this is x equals, x symmetry of my vertex, or the x part of my vertex, I'm going to take those two numbers, 2 and negative 1, and I'm going to average them. I'm going to add them together and cut it in half. You might already see why this is going to be more fun. 2 plus a negative 1 is 1 over 2. It means my axis of symmetry and the x part of my vertex is 1/2. Huh. 1/2. Positive 1/2. And the only other thing that we need is the y portion of my vertex. So I'm going to take h of x and I'm going to plug in a half. I already had a half at the beginning. X minus 2, x plus 1. And I'm going to plug in a half. You could punch this all in if you wanted. You could even realize that a half is the same thing as 0.5. So just for fun, let's punch this all in, and then I'll do it by hand because I like that nonsense. All right, so I'm going to start here. 0.5, that's the first half. Parentheses, 0.5 minus 2, end parentheses. Parentheses, 0.5 plus 1, end parentheses. If I hit enter, I get negative 1.125. So this is negative 1.125. Let's see, as a decimal, or as a fraction, that's negative 1 1/8 or negative 9/8, if you like fractions. Now let me do this by hand just for fun. This is 1/2 times, let's see, 1/2 minus 2 is negative 1.5 or negative 3/2. Then 1/2 plus 1 is positive 3/2. Let's see, positive times negative times positive. That's going to be a negative. Check this nonsense out. Multiply straight across the top. 1 times 3 times 3 is 9. 2 times 2 times 2, straight across the bottom, is 8. Negative 9/8. So h of 1/2 is negative 9/8. If you want to write this as a decimal, you want to write 0.5 comma negative 1.125. I am totally okay with that.